Hello, welcome to Paper Daisy Journals. It's Kylie. This video is a flip through of this fabric covered keepsake journal that I have made. It is ridiculously full of decoration. There is not much ephemera or journaling space for lengthy entries. However, it was lots of fun for me to make, and some people do collect journals for the beautiful things that are inside rather than the space to journal. You can also use this type of heavily decorated journal for quotes. So that is another use. For me, it's every journal I make is a creative outlet, and I just go with the flow. I go with whatever happens, and this journal happened in this particular way. So on the front cover, I have a quilted pocket here that I got from an Etsy shop, and that will be linked in the description below. But there is a pocket here that you could put a tag. I have sewn a sari silk bow to the cover, so it is hand stitched on, which makes that pocket more narrow because that has gone through the pocket and the cover. Some beautiful antique lace at the top here that I've only lightly sewn across the top and tacked where the bow is stitched, just to keep a little bit of movement in the journal. This daisy chain goes around to the back of the journal. It's a 5-hole pamphlet stitch, so everything is very securely held in. I have hand stitched this piece of lace to some fabric, vintage fabric, and also hand stitched the daisy chain on. Down the bottom here is a very thin distressed piece of quilt, and I have hand stitched this crocheted patch onto the back. I love bows. I love bows, blossoms and butterflies, and they seem to be quite an obvious running theme in all of my journals, and this one certainly has quite a few bows. I decided rather than wrapping the closure around that I would keep it to the side with eyelets, because otherwise it would cut that bow in half. And I wanted it to sort of have a flow from the top to the bottom. I have a little cluster of charms and a glass button just dangling there for a little bit of sound and movement, because I do like to have that in my journals. I have lined the journal with some beautiful pale pink vintage wallpaper, and it has a cream floral pattern. And I have used some of the quilted patch to make tags as well. So I've stitched the actual tag shape on the sewing machine, and I've going through a bit of a phase at the moment where I like the idea of cutting things out of fabric and using them on ephemera. So this is a fussy cut butterfly that my mum has assisted me with because I haven't got the patience. And I just think it looks fantastic, and it feels really good as well. So that is a quilted tag tucked into a lace pocket there. And I've also used some velvet in the lining as well, just to add another layer. This is a book page from a butterfly encyclopedia, and I have a tab with a little cluster and mother of pearl stitched on. I do machine stitch, but then I also hand stitch a lot of things in my journals as well. This is a lace tuck spot, and if you were to want to do more writing, then you can sort of see space for. These tuck spots are a great place if you have a sheet of paper that you would like to fold and sort of tuck in. So I have left quite a few places for that to happen if you are more of a journaler and less of a collector, so to speak, because there are a lot of people who collect journals because of what is on the inside. I am one of those people. I love to collect journals that are heavily decorated, and that's possibly why this one just turned out this way. I never really go into making a journal with a set theme or idea. It usually just naturally comes together as it does. This is a wallpaper tag with some ledger on the back, and I have stitched on some a doily edge to make a pocket, and I've also used some avocado stained paper in this journal. This is a piece of ledger with some lace as a ruffle sort of down the side, and I've stitched on a couple of layered pieces there. And because the stitching was a little messy, I have stuck some washi tape there, but I feel the colours sort of go in matching quite well, so it's not too noticeable. On this Edith Holden page, I have stitched a little butterfly, and this butterfly I sort of added antennae to, and there's two little cross stitches there as well. And on the back here, I have stuck some music paper and a pressed flower. In this silky pocket, I've just layered some vintage bobbin lace at the bottom, and this is another one of those fabric tags. You may think, well, you can't really write on fabric, which is true unless you use a fabric pen, but you can actually pin a little note to the back of this, and I thought that was actually quite a sweet idea. So there is a use for it other than decoration. I have some beautiful braille paper here that I got from an Etsy shop that I will link in the description. I'm not sure if there's any of it left, but that was quite a unique find to put in a journal because it is quite textured, and you don't have to do any embossing because it's already embossed. I have a beautiful handmade paper tag here, and I've just stitched a little ruffle on the top and used a stencil. So I've stenciled that sort of image onto the front and done some inking around the edge, and I've really liked how that's turned out. So I will link Heather's shop in the description. And this is a antique bobbin tuck spot that I have stitched in on this music paper. I have left this open at the bottom here purely because it's quite delicate and I didn't want it to tear unnecessarily, but you can glue or staple that closed if you wish to make that into a more secure pocket. On this piece of ledger, I have another cluster. This is sari trim that I have tea stained, and you can see there's little sequins sewn into it, which is really sweet. And I've used a glass milk button to stitch those on. A ruffle here with some lace and a little trim that I've stitched on. And this is on an embroidery magazine page. And I just love how they sort of poke out at the side there. This is some beautiful Locta paper from Nepal. And it has a gorgeous white pattern on a cream background. It's handmade paper and it's quite fibrous and has almost like a fabric feel, which I love. And I have stitched a pocket made from a piece of, I I think tablecloth or doily, and some trim layered on there. Edith Holden page with some hand stitched flowers there on the tag, and I have left that on the back because sometimes it's nice to see the hand stitching, and mine is not neat. But the front, you know, that's the part you need to look at, I guess. I just have a go, you know. I love making journals, and I don't always need it to be perfect. In fact, I do subscribe to the shabby chic style, and sometimes I possibly take liberties in getting away with certain things because of that is my aesthetic. A little lace bow here that I have stitched to the top of the page. I just think that's so cute. Slightly obscured by the top of that tag, but again, it adds layers. This is fine to use ballpoint pen on. Fountain pen, not so friendly. So that's just some advice if you're putting it into a journal, or purchase a journal and use fountain pen. This is a doily that I have torn and turned into a tuck spot there. And this is also a tuck spot on this side. Another butterfly that I have stitched onto some gorgeous antique lace, and this is on an Edith Holden book page with poppies and daisies, and another pressed flower. On this page, a lace pocket with some trim at the top, and some crochet from a tablecloth at the bottom, hand stitched on there. An antique French legal document, and you can actually see the imprinted stamp there. There's a darker one there, and you can also see the watermark on this gorgeous paper as well. This is another one of those tuck spots that you can fold a piece of paper into. Some book page here as well, which as you'll see on the inside wasn't so strong, so I have actually glued fabric to it to make it a little bit stronger. In the center here I do have some beads, some glass beads, and some pearl effect beads as well. And this is one of the hanky envelopes that I have been making. I hand stitched them. This is some of that Lochta paper on the bottom, textured paper, and tea stained paper as the lining, and then I've torn the envelope, the hanky, and that is the top part going down to the bottom, and there's a piece of lace just on the bottom there for something a bit interesting, because I don't like having scraps at the end of doing a journal. I tend to then go through and just add more and more layers, so there are no scraps, which is probably why this one turned out to be so big. Full, I'll say full. But full of really fun stuff. So I don't see that as a bad thing. That's the other side of that page. And here is another one of the quilted tags, and I've just stitched a little cluster at the top there, and a lace pocket with another little cluster at the top there on a piece of ledger. I love ledger because the paper is quite thick. I think it's almost 110 GSM. I'm not sure what that is in pounds. The other side of that French legal document with a little butterfly. There are antennae, but they're in a cream colour, so they're a little bit hard to see. I think there was one butterfly I didn't do antennae for, possibly two, because they were on tags. But that one has its antennae back. On this page, a really beautiful antique piece of trim, broderie anglaise trim or eyelet, and it's got some beautiful staining to it, which I'm liking more and more lately. And inside there I just have a little tag I've hand stitched around the outside, which I love the look of. It has a tag topper. This is some of that embroidery magazine, and a butterfly stitched on. He has his antennae, and a piece of the same fabric as the closure, as a little bit of background there, so some layering. And he peeks out underneath here. Another pressed flower. I do glue those on with permanent glue, and I tend to put glue on each of the petals so they don't just flake off. Another tuck spot there with a little cluster at the top. That's some of that sari trim that I have avocado dyed, and it comes out the most beautiful muted pink and matches in perfectly with the avocado stained paper. You don't always get the same pink though. Sometimes it can be a purpley color. It depends what they've used in the fabric and what type of fabric it is, I've noticed. A beautiful piece of daisy trim sewn on to that tuck spot there. And that's the other side of that handmade paper with it's sort of a tuck spot, I guess, and a little pocket. But there's a bow there at the bottom, and I just love how sweet that is. I really like that page. I think it would look really nice with one of the wallpaper tags. I don't think there's one that's close enough for me to transfer it, but yes, I do love those sort of muted neutral colors. This is a heart applique I've just very delicately sewn on to this pocket, which was from a vintage handkerchief, and I love the beautiful pattern and design on the corner there. Another one of those lace tuck spots, and rather than cutting the top off, I just sort of flip it over to the next page. I do that with a lot of things if they're not the perfect size for the width of the page. Rather than cutting it off and having a scrap, I fold it over the side and sew it down. Another mother of pearl button there on some laces at the top. And again, with this music paper, I haven't glued that down, but you can easily do that if you wish. And there is another one of those pressed flowers. Very delicate tag with a pressed flower and some lace stuck on, and that's on tea stained paper. I've just tucked that into that pocket there. That's a bobbin lace pocket on the braille paper. The other side of the Edith Holden page with another butterfly, some sari trim and some vintage bobbin lace layered on. And that's a wallpaper tag. You can see the gold shimmer and some ledger on the back in a bobbin lace pocket, and there's also some trim on the bottom there, and I've just hand stitched this little piece at the top here, so there's a little bit of movement and shabbiness. I do really love this this sort of page as well, I think, with the layering and just the neutrals. A piece of embroidered doily here, stitched on with some tulle lace, and another delicate tea stain tag with a pressed flower and lace, and that's a lace pocket with some trim stitched on as well. And in the back here on this piece of ledger, there's some layered lace and some crochet that I've stitched, and here again some different laces layered on, and that's the other side of the butterfly page. On the back page here in this pocket, another of those quilted tags and a butterfly stitched on with a vintage button, and that's in a lace pocket, of course. Lots and lots of laces, pockets, tuck spots. Very, as I said at the start, very, very decorative. I refrained from putting any beads or charms apart from the one on the front on, because I just felt that it was quite full to bursting as it was. But I actually really like that. So yeah, and that's how this sort of journal came about, quite naturally, as with most of my creations. So yes, thank you so much for watching. Bye.